All right, guys, well, there hasn't been much to report in the way of weather. Hold on, look at Sandy. Sandy, what are you doing? What are you doing, dude? Anyway, there hasn't been much to report in terms of weather because it's been like borderline hot, and that's not, to me, that's not beautiful weather. To some of you northerners, that probably sounds beautiful, but for us Floridians, this is the weather. This is it. It is probably 60 degrees, super sunny, clear blue skies. This is a beautiful day in Florida. Oh man, I love these days, man. I love them. And it works out because today is a day where we have a lot to do, a lot to get done, lots of progress to make. So what we have, if you guys didn't see the last video, we got the engine in the car. Me and Ben yesterday got the steering shaft on, which was a bit of a pain because it's right next to the freaking exhaust manifold. So like trying to get the joint to line up to get it, it's just one of those things. Not a good time. But we got that in. I got the trans mount on. So what we have to do today is things like drive shaft, wires, fuel lines, exhaust, hooking all the wiring up, putting the radiator in, hooking the hoses up. I mean, just literally basically finishing up the engine install. So optimistic Taylor's plan, get all of that done today. And then tomorrow we should have our last dry sump fitting come in. I needed two of the same ones. I had to order them from different places and the one place didn't have it. So I ordered it from my buddy Chris Jackson. He's shipping it out today. But anyway, tomorrow, last bit of the dry sump stuff should come in, and then we will be able to do the dry sump lines, which I'm hoping will only take a day. So I'm hoping this will take a day. I'm hoping that'll take a day. And then after that, we should be ready to start it. I can't foresee anything else that could potentially be a hang up at this point, at least. But who knows? You know, who knows? With cars, you never know. I mean, there could be some tiny little thing that you just didn't think about that you need. You know, it's just the way it is. But optimistically, 2 days, first start. So let's get started on today's bit of projects. I guess since the car's all the way up, I'm all the way up. Drive shaft, exhaust, wires, etc. Tool cart's a bit of a mess after the engine install. Let's clean it up. All right, we are all organized, ready to get started. The only thing I couldn't find was my short 14. Normally when I work, well, thing number one, when I'm starting like a new project, or like let's say I was working on the suspension and then now I'm moving on to something else, like completely separate, I'll reorganize my tools and start over, just so that everything's in its place. And I usually try while I'm working to put everything back. So like if I use a 14 and I don't see myself using it like immediately, I'll put it back. So that way I always know where stuff is. And honestly, like it seems like more work, but you end up spending way less time looking for tools. And to me, it's worth it to just know where everything is at all times. So yeah, drive shaft, exhaust. Let's get to it. So I got the drive shaft in and I went to go do the exhaust and I was like, wait, I should probably put these power wires up first so I'm not, you know, the exhaust isn't in the way. And then I had something else that came into mind that I should do before the exhaust. And then I kind of realized like, look, I need to get all my parts out, spread them out, and come up with a game plan. That way I don't negatively impact myself by doing one thing ahead of the other. So if I put the brake calipers on first and then I go to put the coilovers in, but I need to unbolt the control arm and drop it down more to get the coilover in, then I got to undo the brake caliper again. So I'm trying to just kind of take a look at everything and figure out what needs to come first, second, third, etc. The most logical way I can. I mean, I'm sure I'm still gonna run into issues like that, but I'm gonna at least try my best to plan it out. So I've got a game plan now. I wanna finish up that wiring. I think there's one more thing I need to do, and then exhaust on, and then radiator, and then bring the car down, and then all the other stuff. So if it changes, it changes, but that's my current game plan. Let's get back to work. right, pretty much got everything done underneath. Exhaust on, drive shaft in, got the radiator in, which is kind of underneath. I mean, you got to put it in from underneath, so I consider it an underneath project. So I think we're just gonna work our way up. So we got the bottom stuff done. So now we'll move on to like shocks and brake calipers and stuff. And then we'll move up to like engine bay wiring. We got to pull the bumper off, put the intake itself on, intake manifold on, sensor, all that stuff. So next step, suspension. Front suspension is done. We got our brakes on, brake lines, coilovers, everything all locked together, all bolted together, everything's set. Like I said, we got all the bottom stuff done. Did something else that I needed to do. I don't remember. Oh, I got that wiring through because I got to hook the oil pressure sensor up, but now we're moving up top. So we're gonna go ahead and do what we need to do without the intake manifold on, which is like just mainly the oil pressure sensor. And then we can put the intake manifold on and start running all our wiring. We need to hook up our radiator plumbing, but I mean, we are cruising right along. One thing that's interesting about doing stuff like projects for me that it's different. So for example, this, like putting this car back together, I know how it goes together. I know like what needs to be done. I know how to do that. So for me, it's like I can jam out and like knock a bunch of stuff out in a day when it comes to stuff like this, like just bolting stuff together. What takes time is making parts fit that don't quite fit right, because nothing really goes together 100% right on an aftermarket, you know, like a build like this, because everything's different, you know. Making little parts and stuff, which is my favorite part, like making brackets and making the fan shroud and the expansion tank, like that stuff's super fun, but it took me 2 days to make the expansion tank, whereas it's probably gonna take me 2 days to put this whole car together. It's just interesting observation. You know, I find when I'm doing stuff like that, I'll have a lot more like break time where I'll just stop and like think about how I'm gonna do the next part, and I have to really kind of break it down, and then I do another part, and then I wait, and then I do another part. Whereas with this, I'm just like, okay, this is done, okay, move on to this. Okay, this is done, move on to this, because it's straightforward. There's no room for interpretation as to how it goes together. Like, it goes together one way. We've already figured that way out, putting it together the first time, so we're just putting it back together. So anyway, get a lot more work done when it's stuff like this. So yeah, move on to the top. Making killer progress. We got all the wiring hooked up down below, like the O2 sensors and all that stuff, the crank sensor, everything hooked up behind the intake manifold, fuel lines hooked up. I went ahead and hooked up my power steering cooler and got that all ran to the reservoir and down to the rack, so that's sorted. There's like 2 things that I'm conflicted on doing right now. It's just one of those things where I want to get as much done as like absolutely possible. so that, you know, all we have left is like the dry sump lines. But if I, you know, do something that ends up in the way and I've got to take it back apart, that's kind of redundant and not very efficient. So I don't know. I got to figure that out. I got to decide what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to keep doing everything else that I need to do. And once I get to those parts, if I want to put them on and most likely have to take them back off, then I will. If not, then I won't. Yeah, I got to say I'm a little nervous. I mean, one, building an engine yourself, you know, like that's on you. Like, hope you did everything right, you know, and it's a little nerve-wracking. I mean, I can't think of anything that I messed up, but you never know, you know? And then two, the dry sump, you know, like, I don't know if one of the lines might end up too high and I won't be able to prime the system, and there's just like unforeseeable things that I have no way of knowing exactly how they're gonna pan out. So I'm a little nervous, and we're coming up quick on the time. I mean, we're making some steady progress. So, you know, we'll find out in the next day or so. Wish me luck. Anyway, I'm gonna get back to work, start chipping away at everything else I can, and then we'll see where we're at. All right, well, I mean, that's pretty much it. I can't think of a single other thing to do. I mean, I'm sure I'll come up with like one or two things, but she's together, wired, plumbed, suspension, exhaust, drive shaft. I mean, literally everything, which is it's just so exciting. Like, I don't know. I guess I should have known that it would go back together this easy, because like I said, the hard part is figuring out how to get everything to work together, and then once it works together, bolting it together is not hard. And I think that's something people misunderstand about building cars. Like, building a car is not the same as just like bolting parts onto a car that fit right. Like, it's just not. It's totally different. And this is more like bolting parts on a car because they've already been made to fit and everything's already worked out and figured out. But the working out and figuring out is the hard and time-consuming part. But I don't know. I'm just stoked. I mean, literally, pretty much everything is done. Like, brakes need to be bled, and then interior. So basically, we've got to do dry sump lines, which will run through the interior. So we're gonna have to pull a little bit of it out, run the lines, get the interior buttoned up, I mean, and then start it. So hopefully next video, we'll do a first start with the dry sump, because we gotta make the high pressure line, the feed and return lines, and that's pretty much it. So I hope you guys are as excited as I am to get this thing back on track, see how it performs with the dry sump, see how it performs with the new engine. It's got better heads, higher compression, should make 20 to 30 more horsepower. We got the handbrake setup done, better radiator and fan setup. I mean, we've done a lot of stuff in this like rebuild process. So I'm really excited to finish it up. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Goodbye, guys.